Bonnie Tyler's biggest career regret haunted her for over 40 years. In 1983, she turned down the chance to sing a James Bond theme, a decision she never stopped regretting. But stay with me to discover the heartbreaking answer she received from Bond producers when she finally asked for another chance. In 1983, Bonnie Tyler was about as big as a British singer could get. Her voice was everywhere. And that year, the producers behind the James Bond spin-off Never Say Never Again came to her with an offer: sing the title theme. She was approached to sing the title song of the James Bond film, and she turned down the offer because she disliked the song. That's it. That's the whole decision. No long negotiation, no dramatic falling out with producers. She heard the track, she didn't connect with it, and she walked. Here's the thing, she wasn't lukewarm about the offer itself. She said, "I'd love to do a Bond theme because I turned one down for Never Say Never Again. My God, I was so excited when they asked me. But then I heard the song and I didn't believe in it." She wanted in, she just couldn't get past the song they handed her, so the job went elsewhere. The theme for Never Say Never Again was sung by Lonnie Hall and composed by Michel Legrand with lyrics by Alan and Marilyn Bergman. Hall recorded it. The film came out and Bonnie Tyler moved on with her career like nothing had happened. Except it wasn't nothing. It followed her. Decades later, in a 2025 interview with The Telegraph, she was still talking about it. She expressed her regret about turning down the opportunity to record a theme for the 1983 James Bond film Never Say Never Again. Not a passing comment, a direct, on-record admission that the decision still bothered her. And she didn't stop at regret. She made an actual appeal. She added, "So please, if anybody's reading this, I wish they'd ask me again, because I want a Bond song." That's a 70-something-year-old, decades-established hitmaker, publicly asking the biggest movie franchise on the planet to give her a second shot at something she turned down when Margaret Thatcher was still fairly new in office. It never happened. Sadly, the singing superstar never had the opportunity to fulfill her wish. No call came back. No producer picked up the phone. The Bond franchise moved through Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, and a rotating cast of chart-topping women who got the job she wanted. Sheena Easton, Tina Turner, Shirley Bassey more than once, Adele, Billie Eilish. Tyler watched every single one of them get the phone call she'd once hung up on. Now, to be fair to her, this wasn't the only Bond door she closed. There's evidence she was in the mix for more than one film across the years. Forum records and fan documentation reference her being picked to perform the title song to Casino Royale, and why she turned down the offer in 1987 to perform the title song to The Living Daylights. So this wasn't a one-time fluke of bad timing. Bond kept knocking in one form or another, and more than once, Tyler didn't open the door all the way, which makes the whole thing stranger. This is a woman who, by her own account, wanted a Bond song badly enough to publicly beg for one in her 70s. And yet, when the actual opportunity showed up, something about the material never lined up for her. That tension, wanting it, saying no anyway, wanting it again, is the whole story. It's not really about James Bond. It's about a singer who trusted her gut every single time, and then spent 40 years wondering if her gut had been wrong. To understand why she said no in the first place, you have to understand who Bonnie Tyler was in 1983, what she'd already built, what she believed she owed her voice, and why a song she didn't believe in was enough to make her turn down Seven. By the time the Bond producers rang her up, Bonnie Tyler wasn't some hungry newcomer looking for a break. She was already one of the most recognizable voices in music, and she'd gotten there the hard way, through a small Welsh town, a name that wasn't originally hers, and a voice that almost didn't survive. She was born Gaynor Hopkins on June 1951 in Wales. In 1975, she was spotted singing with her band in the Townsmen Club in Swansea by talent scout Roger Bell, who invited her to London to record a demo track, and after several months, she received a phone call from RCA Records offering her a recording contract. The label wanted a change, and they recommended she change her name again. So after compiling a list of surnames and first names from a newspaper, she chose the name Bonnie Tyler, a stage name pulled together from a list. That's how casually the whole thing started. Her first single flopped. My Honeycomb was released as her debut single in April 1976 but did not chart. Nobody was talking about her yet. But the label kept pushing, and the next single is where things started to move. RCA Records allocated £4,000 for a promotional campaign. That involved sending 30 music journalists and radio DJs to Le Touquet, France, where they met Tyler over a 4-course meal. It's a strange little detail, a record label flying journalists to France over dinner just to build buzz for one single. But it worked. That single was lost in France, and it put her on the map. Then came the moment that made her a genuine star. Her 1977 single, It's a Heartache, reached number 4 on the UK singles chart, and number 3 on the US Billboard Hot 100. That husky, worn-in voice, the one that sounded like it had lived through everything it was singing about, suddenly had an audience on 2 continents. She kept climbing through the rest of the decade. She won the World Song Festival in Japan in 1979. That same competition circuit put her in some unforgettable company. Cissy Houston, Whitney Houston's mother, came in 2nd place, and Tyler later shared a photo backstage with Whitney, writing that the teenager had asked for her autograph, saying she was only about 15 or 16, and so sweet. Whitney Houston, a teenager, asking Bonnie Tyler for an autograph. That's the kind of stature Tyler already had before Bond ever entered the picture. Then 1983 hit, and everything went up another level entirely. In the 1980s, Tyler ventured into rock music with songwriter and producer Jim Steinman, who wrote her biggest hit, Total Eclipse of the Heart, which sold over 13 million copies worldwide, and was released as the lead single from her UK chart-topping album Faster Than the Speed of Night. 13 million copies. That's not a hit, that's a phenomenon. And getting Steinman on board wasn't a given. She revealed her record label thought she was mad to ask the songwriter to work with her, recalling, "I knew it would work with Jim Steinman, but my label thought I was mad." She pushed anyway, and the label caved. That's the pattern with Tyler. She trusted her own instincts over the people around her, and more often than not, she was right. That's the exact same instinct she used on the Bond song a few months later. She trusted her gut on Steinman, and got the biggest hit of her career. She trusted her gut on the Bond theme and turned down a shot at 7. Same instinct. Wildly different outcome, at least in her own mind. The Bond snub didn't slow her down either. The very next year, she was back on a soundtrack that actually worked out. In 1984, she released Holding Out for a Hero from the Footloose soundtrack. Steinman wrote that one too. It became one of her signature songs, blasted at every training montage, an underdog moment in pop culture for the next 40 years. The following year, her recording of Here She Comes for Giorgio Moroder's restoration of the 1927 film Metropolis earned her a Grammy nomination for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance. So within 2 years of turning Bond down, she'd already banked a soundtrack smash and a Grammy nod. On paper, it looked like she hadn't lost a thing, but paper doesn't measure regret. And underneath the hits, that one no kept sitting there, waiting for the next interview where somebody would ask her about it. So what exactly was it about that Never Say Never Again theme that made a woman who just fought her own label for Jim Steinman suddenly go quiet and say no? It comes back to one phrase she used over and over for the rest of her life. She didn't believe in it. Not that the song was bad, necessarily, just that she couldn't connect to it, and for Tyler, that was a deal breaker. She actually spelled this out even more directly in a separate interview years earlier, framing it almost as a rule she lived by. She told Record Collector magazine, "I would absolutely love to record a James Bond theme, but I didn't like the song for the film, and I can't sing a song I don't believe in." That's not a throwaway line. That's basically her entire artistic philosophy in one sentence. If she doesn't feel it, she doesn't sing it. Didn't matter whose name was attached, didn't matter what franchise it belonged to. And here's where it gets interesting, because that same interview shows her flipping between 2 completely different verdicts on the exact same decision. In that Record Collector conversation, she wasn't torn up about it at all. The Welsh singer said she had no regrets because the tune didn't turn out to be a hit. She went further. "It was the only theme that never became a hit, so I think I made the right choice. No regrets, vindicated, even." She'd trusted her ear. The song flopped commercially, and she felt proven right. Compare that to the Telegraph conversation where she called it flat out the worst decision she ever made, and begged for a second chance. Tyler expressed regret for turning down the opportunity to record a theme song for the 1983 James Bond film, calling it her worst decision. So which is it? Vindicated or her biggest career regret? Honestly, probably both, depending on the day she was asked. That's what 4 decades of carrying one decision does to a person. Some days you tell yourself you were right to trust your gut. Other days you just want the door to open one more time so you can walk through it differently. What's clear is that the commercial fate of the song she rejected did become part of her justification, whichever way she was leaning that day. The theme, sung by Lani Hall and composed by Michel Legrand with lyrics by Alan and Marilyn Bergman, did not hit the Billboard charts. It wasn't a smash. It didn't become one of the beloved Bond themes people still stream today. So Tyler had this constant, nagging piece of evidence sitting right there. Proof that maybe her instinct about the song had been correct all along, even while she wished she'd found a way to make it work anyway. There's also a wrinkle in exactly which Bond opportunity she was even talking about across the years. And that matters because it shows this wasn't just one missed call. It was a pattern that repeated. Fan researchers who've dug through old documentary footage found that a bonus feature on a Bond DVD release included a small section by Bonnie Tyler on why she was picked to perform the title song to Casino Royale, and why she turned down the offer in 1987 to perform the title song to The Living Daylights. One theory floated by fans about why she turned that one down is even more revealing than I didn't believe in it. According to that same footage recap, the reason she turned it down before was because she noticed that popular artists disappeared after performing a Bond theme, and also that the more popular artists were far older. If that's accurate, it means her hesitation wasn't purely about the melody or the lyrics. It was about pattern recognition, watching what happened to other singers after they took the Bond stage, and deciding she didn't want that fate for herself, at least not then. She was young, she was rising, and a Bond theme in the wrong era of your career could look like a career epilogue rather than a chapter. Whatever the exact mix of reasons, a song she didn't connect with, a fear of typecasting, a hunch about commercial performance, the result was the same every time. She said no. And every single time she said no, the opportunity went to someone else, and Tyler kept building the rest of her catalog without it. That's the shape of her whole relationship with Bond: repeated chances, repeated refusals, and a growing pile of what if that she never got to test. Here's what makes this story different from a normal case of celebrity regret. Bonnie Tyler didn't just mention this once and move on. She brought it up across decades, to different outlets, using almost the same language every time, like she was leaving a standing voicemail for the Bond franchise that nobody ever picked up. Go back far enough and you'll find her saying almost the exact same thing she said in 2025, just with a different age attached to her name. In one earlier interview, she put it as plainly as possible: "My biggest regret is not recording a James Bond theme song after being asked." That's the whole quote. Biggest regret. Not one of, not a small one, the biggest. And notice the timing pattern here. She wasn't bringing this up during slow news cycles when she needed a headline. She kept bringing it up whenever a new Bond film cycle started, whenever a new theme singer got announced, whenever the franchise was back in the news. It's like the machinery of Bond itself kept reopening the wound every couple of years without even trying to. By 2025, she'd clearly decided subtlety wasn't working, so she went direct. The plea to the Telegraph wasn't phrased like a wistful memory, it was phrased like an actual pitch. She wasn't hoping quietly, she was campaigning. And the timing of that plea actually lined up with a moment when the door, for the first time in years, looked like it might genuinely be open. The Bond franchise was in the middle of a massive changeover behind the scenes. The next Bond movie will be the first produced by Amazon MGM Studios, following the surprise departures of long-term producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. New ownership, new decision-makers, no entrenched loyalty to whoever had handled music selection for the last 20 years of films. The hunt is on for a new actor to play the lead role, but studio bosses have already hired Dune movie maker Denis Villeneuve to direct, and Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight has been brought on for the story side of things. A full reset, new director, new studio, new creative direction. Exactly the kind of shakeup that, in theory, could shuffle the deck on who gets asked to sing the theme too. If there was ever a moment for Tyler's decades-long request to actually land, this was it. A brand new regime with no history of saying no to her specifically, stepping into a franchise that's always used its theme song as a signature moment. She'd been asking the old guard for years. Now there was a new guard that had never even had the chance to turn her down. It's worth remembering, too, that this wasn't Tyler quietly fading from view while she waited. She was still active, still touring, still doing precisely the kind of career maintenance that would make her a plausible pick for a franchise like Bond. Her back catalog had only grown more iconic with time. Total Eclipse of the Heart never really left the culture. Holding Out for a Hero got a second life in movies and shows decades after Footloose. If anything, the case for giving her a theme song only got stronger as the years passed, not weaker. She'd also picked up formal recognition along the way that reinforced just how firmly she'd been absorbed into the fabric of British music. Tyler was appointed member of the Order of the British Empire in the 2022 Birthday Honors for Services to Music, an MBE. That's not a nostalgia act getting a pity nod. That's the UK government formally recognizing her as a lasting cultural figure years after her commercial peak. She'd also proven relatively recently that she could still show up and represent her country on a massive stage when the opportunity called for it. She represented the United Kingdom at the Eurovision Song Contest in Sweden with her single Believe in Me, and she went on to make history there too. She became the first, and so far only UK representative to receive a Eurovision Song Contest Radio Award, winning in 2013. So this wasn't someone whose voice had faded into the background of music history. She was still capable of stepping into a big internationally watched musical moment and delivering. And yet, none of it converted into the one thing she said she wanted most. No follow-up call from the new Bond regime, no announcement, no theme song. The plea sat there in print, unanswered, the same way it had sat unanswered every other time she'd said it out loud, across the better part of half a century. So the wait continued, and then, for Bonnie Tyler, the clock ran out entirely. Deadline reported that in the spring she was placed in a medically induced coma after emergency surgery for a perforated intestine. A spokesperson later said she was out of the coma but remained very unwell in hospital, with doctors predicting a slow recovery, and her health issues meant tour dates for that summer were canceled. A woman who'd spent decades still performing, still doing interviews, still publicly angling for one more shot at a Bond theme, was suddenly fighting for her own recovery instead. She didn't recover. The entertainer died at the age of 75 on July 8 in a hospital in Portugal. A statement went up on her official website explaining that her passing came as a result of the illness that she was being treated for, adding, "We will issue a further statement shortly, but for now, ask for privacy to deal with this tragedy." Her full name, the one history will record, was Gaynor Sullivan, born Hopkins, known professionally as Bonnie Tyler, a Welsh singer and songwriter, born 8 June 1951 and passing 8 July 2026. Almost exactly 75 years, marked on both ends by the same day of the month. What she leaves behind isn't small. She stood as one of the most unmistakable female voices in the history of the music industry, and with her signature husky delivery, she defined the sound of a generation. Songs like It's a Heartache, Total Eclipse of the Heart, and Holding Out for a Hero aren't just old hits. They're still played, still streamed, still used in films and shows for a whole generation of people who never watched her rise in the 70s and 80s. That's the kind of catalog most artists never get close to. In the days after she passed, tributes came in from across the industry, and a lot of them circled back to that same Bond story without anyone even prompting it. Fans on radio phone-ins and music forums kept bringing up her old quotes about wanting a theme song, treating it less like a footnote and more like a genuine piece of unfinished business in her career. Radio stations that played tribute blocks of her music noted, almost in passing, that she'd never gotten the one credit she'd spent decades asking for. It says something that out of a catalog stacked with international hits, a Grammy nomination, an MBE, and a Eurovision record, the detail people kept returning to in the obituaries was a song that never happened. Her family's statement stayed brief and asked for space. So there was no grand farewell tour, no final interview where she got to address the Bond question one more time. That silence in its own way closed the story the same way it had run for 40 years, with the wish still sitting out there, unanswered, and nobody left to ask it again on her behalf. And through all of that, the hits, the Grammy nomination, the Eurovision history, the MBE, there was one pivotal behind-the-scenes moment she could never quite shake, a single choice made at the absolute height of her fame that lingered with her for over 4 decades. Right to the end, she was still bringing it up, still hoping someone from that franchise would read an interview, pick up a phone, and finally close the loop she'd left open since 1983. Nobody ever did. The Bond producers who took over after the ownership change never announced her. No theme song credit, no studio session, no call. The plea she made stayed exactly what it had always been, a wish, spoken out loud, into a room that never answered back. It's a strange kind of ending for someone with her track record. Most of her career reads like a string of instincts that paid off, trusting Steinman when her own label doubted her, building a run of hits that outlasted trends, decades, even entire genres shifting underneath her. The one instinct that didn't pay off, at least not in the way she wanted, was the one she made about a movie theme in 1983. She trusted her gut, the song flopped anyway, and 40-some years later, she was still asking for a do-over that never came. Maybe that's the part of this that actually sticks. Not that she turned down James Bond. Plenty of artists have turned down plenty of things. It's that she never let it go quiet. She kept naming it, kept asking, kept believing right up until the very end that the door might still open. It never did, and now, it never will.